All right, everyone. Welcome back to Sip and Talk.
It's great to be back.
You know, it's funny. I was just thinking, you know how much we talk about all this serious stuff?
Yeah.
We should probably take a minute to, just chill and, catch up. What have you been up to?
Oh, man. Just the usual, diving into some research.
Always got to be researching.
Always got to be researching. Right. And this time, I stumbled on something really interesting. It's about Taiwan.
Oh, Taiwan.
Always a hot topic.
Always a hot topic.
Yeah.
It really is. But this was a different angle.
Yeah.
You won't believe this. Taiwan is ranked as the second most liked country in Asia.
Wait a minute. Second? Are you serious?
Dead serious. It's based on a whole bunch of factors like respect, tourism, diversity.
Yeah.
Even their democracy got ranked #1.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty impressive. But hold on a sec. I'm having a bit of a brain meltdown here.
What's up?
Well, on one hand, you've got Taiwan, killing it in the global popularity contest. But then on the other hand, you talk to young people in Taiwan and they don't even want to use the word Chinese to describe their own language. It's such a fascinating contradiction.
It really is. It's like they love their country, but they don't want to be lumped in with mainland China.
It's all about identity.
Yeah.
And for a lot of young Taiwanese people, Mandarin just feels way more neutral than Chinese.
I can see that. It's like they're trying to create their own space, separate from all the political baggage that comes with the word Chinese.
Exactly. One of the articles I read had this analogy, and it's kind of brutal, but it makes sense. They said it's like a daughter who married into a rich family, but now her poor, uncultured relatives want her back.
Oh my God, that's harsh. But you know what? It's kind of true.
Right. Taiwan's doing its own thing, thriving, and now there's this pressure to kind of go back to a situation that just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and that whole dynamic definitely makes things tricky for the KMT, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We can't talk about Taiwan without talking about the KMT. But before we dive into all of that, we should probably give everyone a quick KMT 101.
KMT 101. Okay, Professor, lay it on us.
All right, so the KMT, it stands for Kuomintang, one of the major political parties in Taiwan. And they're known for being, well, let's just say more open to closer ties with mainland China.
Which, as we just discussed, is kind of a tough sell to a lot of Taiwanese people these days.
It's a tricky situation for sure. And to understand how we got here, we need to take a little trip down memory lane.
History lesson. Time to dust off those textbooks.
So rewind back to the Chinese Civil War, which ended in 1949. The KMT fled to Taiwan. The CCP took over mainland China. Back then, the KMT saw themselves as the rightful rulers of all of China. So the CCP was the enemy.
Okay, got it. Epic rivalry.
Totally. But then things changed. The Cold War ended, China became a global superpower, and the KMT had to adapt.
To adapt how?
Well, they had to move away from that hardcore anti-China stance. That's how we ended up where we are today, with the KMT kind of in this weird in-between space.
Yeah, in between a rock and a hard place, it seems. Like they can't really be pro-China without alienating a lot of Taiwanese people.
Precisely. It's a balancing act. And it's led to a whole bunch of contradictions within the party itself and in how they relate to the rest of Taiwan.
So the KMT is kind of a microcosm of what's going on in Taiwan as a whole.
You could say that this push and pull between embracing a unique Taiwanese identity and navigating this complex relationship with mainland China.
It's a fascinating and complicated situation, to say the least.
No kidding. So where do we even go from here?
Well, I guess that's what we're going to try to figure out.
Yeah.
But let's take a second to, let everyone catch their breath.
Catch our breath. We're just getting started. There's so much more to unpack here.
I know. I'm just messing with you. But seriously, this is a topic that could keep us talking for hours.
Absolutely. We've barely scratched the surface.
All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a quick break to dive even deeper into the KMT and their role in Taiwan's future.
So before the break, we were getting into the whole KMT situation.
Yeah, that whole balancing act they've got going on.
Exactly. Trying to stay friendly with mainland China while also representing the people of Taiwan, many of whom are like, China who?
Seriously, it's a tough spot to be in. I mean, historically, the KMT has always been about unifying with China.
Right. They saw themselves as the rightful government of all of China.
But if they keep pushing for unification, aren't they going against what a lot of Taiwanese people want? Especially the younger generation.
It definitely creates tension, and it gets even trickier when you think about what a unified China under the CCP would actually mean for the KMT.
Wait, what do you mean? Like, what would happen to them?
Well, one of the sources we looked at argued that if China were to take control, the KMT could actually be seen as traitors.
Whoa, traitors.
Yeah.
Pretty strong word.
Yeah.
How would they go from being the party that fled to Taiwan to being labeled as traitors?
It's all about legacy. You've got these iconic KMT leaders like Chiang Kai-shek and Chiang Ching-kuo who were totally anti-communist.
Right, they were like the OG anti-CCP.
Exactly. And if the KMT were to be seen as helping China take over, some people would see it as betrayal of everything those leaders stood for.
I can see that. Like, imagine if the Democrats suddenly decided they loved Donald Trump. People would lose their minds.
It's a similar idea. There's this historical narrative that gets completely flipped on its head.
And it's not just about history, right? Some people think the KMT could just get swallowed up by the CCP.
That's another possibility. They could just become another part of the Chinese Communist Party.
Okay, now that's kind of scary. So basically, they're damned if they do and damned if they don't.
Yeah.
If they push for unification, they risk becoming irrelevant. And if they resist, they risk making China angry.
It's a tough situation. And it's all made even more complicated by this whole soft power thing we were talking about earlier.
Oh, right. Taiwan's awesome global image.
Exactly. They're super popular internationally. But that popularity comes from a lot of the things that some people within Taiwan, including some in the KMT, are trying to downplay.
It's true.
Yeah.
Their democracy, their unique culture, their friendly people. Those are the things that make them stand out.
And those are the things that make them different from mainland China.
So you can't really have it both ways, right? You can't be best buds with a country that represents the opposite of everything you're known for.
It's a real dilemma, and it highlights just how powerful soft power can be.
Hold on. Remind me what soft power is again.
It's basically the ability to influence others through attraction instead of force.
Okay, so like instead of threatening someone, you make them want to be your friend.
Exactly. Think about Hollywood. It's not just about making movies. It's about projecting a certain image of America.
So it's like subtle propaganda.
Kind of, but
Yeah.
it's not always intentional. It's more like cultural influence.
Okay, I get it. So like K-pop is a form of soft power for Korea.
Exactly. People love the music and the style, and that makes them see Korea in a more positive light.
So soft power can be anything from movies to music to even just how nice your people are.
Absolutely. It's about creating a positive image that makes people want to engage with you.
Okay, so back to Taiwan. They're rocking the soft power game. But to really capitalize on that, they need to lean into what makes them unique, which kind of goes against the KMT's whole closer ties with China thing.
Right. It's like they're being pulled in two different directions.
Talk about a tough choice. So what's the answer here? Is there even one?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, there are no easy answers. But what we can do is look at some potential scenarios and think about what they might mean for Taiwan's future.
Okay, hit me with those scenarios.
All right, so let's imagine three different possibilities. First, we've got the balancing act. This is where Taiwan tries to keep everyone happy. They try to maintain good relationships with both China and the rest of the world.
So basically more of the same.
Pretty much. But the question is, how long can they keep that up?
Yeah, it feels like something's got to give eventually.
Okay.
Okay, what's our next option?
Option number 2 is Taiwan goes global. In this scenario, Taiwan doubles down on their unique identity. They embrace everything that makes them different from China, and they try to build stronger relationships with other democracies around the world.
That sounds pretty good.
Taiwan basically says, screw it, we're doing our own thing. They'll be saying, we're not China, we're Taiwan, and we're proud of it.
Bold move. I like it. But wouldn't that make China angry?
It could definitely increase tensions with Beijing.
So more conflict. Not ideal.
All right.
Okay, what's our last scenario?
Our last scenario is the not-so-fun one. We call it a house divided.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
It's not. In this scenario, the divisions within Taiwan get worse. The KMT's pro-China faction gains more power, and the country becomes more and more fractured.
So basically Taiwan tears itself apart.
In a nutshell. And that would make them super vulnerable to pressure from China.
Man, that's a bleak picture. So we've got the balancing act, which is risky. Taiwan goes global, which could lead to conflict, and a house divided, which is just straight up bad.
It's a tough set of choices, and it shows just how complex this whole situation is.
It really is.
Okay.
So what do you think? Which scenario is the most likely?
Honestly, it's impossible to say for sure, but I think it's safe to say that the next few years are going to be crucial for Taiwan.
No kidding. They're at a crossroads, and their decisions are going to have major consequences for the entire region.
Absolutely. This is a story that's still being written, and it's one that we all need to be paying attention to.
Well said. All right, folks, we've covered a lot of ground today. Taiwan's global popularity, the struggle over identity, the KMT's dilemma, and the power of soft power.
It's been a whirlwind tour of Taiwanese politics and culture.
And we've barely scratched the surface. But hopefully this has given you a better understanding of the challenges and opportunities that Taiwan is facing.
We've thrown a lot of information at you, but the big question we want you to think about is this. What do you think the future holds for Taiwan?
Will they be able to maintain this balancing act? Or will they be forced to choose a side? I just want to give another shout out to Micky from Mickytolife. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip&Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it. All right, so we've got the balancing act, where they try to keep everyone happy. But is that even possible? I mean, can they really walk that tightrope forever?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
It feels like something's got to give eventually. Either they lean more towards China, or they lean more towards, the rest of the world.
Exactly.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize that Taiwan's future is about more than just politics. It's about identity, it's about culture, it's about what kind of country they want to be.
Absolutely. And it's about finding a way to navigate this incredibly challenging geopolitical landscape.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks, we've thrown a lot at you today.
Yeah.
But hopefully this has given you a better understanding of the forces at play in Taiwan.
It's a fascinating and important story.
Yeah.
And one that we're going to keep following closely. It's been a whirlwind tour of Taiwanese politics and culture.
But ultimately, it's up to the Taiwanese people to decide what their future looks like.
Exactly. They're the ones who have to live with the consequences of these decisions.
We don't have the answers. But we hope this conversation has given you some food for thought.
And maybe even inspired you to learn more about this incredible island nation.
That's all the time we have for today, folks. Thanks for joining us on Sip and Talk. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into something fascinating. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep sipping.